Okay, bore da pawb a croeso I cyfarfod cynllunio
All and welcome to the Planning
Committee being held on April the 20th, 2022. What we will do is we will start obviously going through the agenda, but just firstly, just so that members are aware, we have the legal officer today is Mr. Robin Jones, who some of you will see on the screen, who is helping us out for a few committees because, as we know, Tim Dillon has left for another position. So that's where obviously any legal issues can be directed towards Mr. Robin Jones today. Okay. That is that. The first item on the agenda, we'll go through the declarations of interest in just a moment, but that's the second item on the agenda. Hopefully people got the late sheets yesterday, which came through yesterday afternoon, because there's quite a bit of information on there in the running order of the day. So apologies, I've had apologies from Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill and Councillor Melvin Mile. Do you have any other apologies, Councillor
Councillor Anne Davis.
Okay, Councillor Anne Davis as well. Do we have, and Councillor Alan Hughes, we've had apologies from. Do we have any other, if you unmute, if there's any other apologies there? Nope. Okay, so just going through the declarations of interest bit, I'm just going to read out this little bit of information for you. So members will be aware of the requirement under the Council's Code of Conduct to declare any personal or prejudicial interests in respect of any business to be considered at today's meeting. Such interests should be declared now or as soon as the councillor affected becomes aware that they have a personal or prejudicial interest in today's business. All members declaring an interest are required to state clearly what the interest is and to advise whether it is a personal interest or a personal and prejudicial interest as defined in the Code of Conduct. Any member declaring a prejudicial interest is required to leave the chamber for the duration of the business and can take no part in the proceedings. Members with a personal interest only may take part in the debate and any vote. If a personal and prejudicial interest is declared today that has not previously been disclosed and recorded, the councillor concerned will be required to complete and sign a declaration of interest form, which is available. Okay, so if anyone has one of those, could you unmute and just let us know right now? Councillor Tina Jones, have you got your hand up?
Yes, that's Joe. Item 10, Travellers Inn at CAERWYS mould. I have all the grandchildren attending my sing. It's personal, really.
Okay. Can you just say that again? We didn't catch it. You said about the grandchildren attending something?
Attending my nursery and out of school club.
Oh, okay. So grandchildren of the owners of the gotcha.
Of the new people in the Travellers Inn.
Okay, so that's a personal interest. Thank you. Cynghorydd Mary Davis.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to you all. Item 12, the AWEL offshore wind farm. The machine that's being built on the agricultural land is almost in front of our house. It's more of a personal interest rather than anything else. I have made references to this before. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to urgent matters as agreed by the chair. I do not have any. So agenda item number 4 is the minutes. Pages 9 to 22 to confirm the accuracy of the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 9th of March 2022. So if we just look through the minutes, which start on page 9. Okay, so we'll just go through it page by page, and I'll obviously if there's anything that crops up as we are going through them, just unmute when we get to that item. Okay, so page 9. Then we got page 10, which we had the land adjacent to Ysgol Pen Dref, and that was on page 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Okay. And then we had on page 15, we had agenda item number 6, which then crossed over to page 16 and 17. We then had agenda item number 7, which was on page 17, 18, 19 and 20. Agenda item. Oh, we've got some hands up there. Councillor Brian Jones, have you got something on the minutes?
Yes, yeah, page 17, bottom of page 17, item number 7, 45202105116 Kingsdale Hall. Can someone ask the question further to a couple of conversations local people have had with me? Are officers working, have they done any further work on this application with the applicant further to it going down at the last planning meeting?
Yeah, I'll bring in Paul Mead on that one.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, just in answer to Councillor Jones's question, yeah, that we are still in contact with the applicants here. We've also got our Egyptian traveller officer that works for the council that's also in contact with them. So we're discussing their options really in relation to effectively it's a breach of planning control that exists on the site. So we're discussing what the options are from there, and we'll update certainly local members as soon as we've heard back from the applicants. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I
come back on that, Chair? Can I come back on that, please? So when is the update going to be available to whoever might be the local members? Because I think that's important, because as in every case, information's drip feeding out through whatever channels. So it is causing concern. So question, when is whoever the new local members might be, or if one of the existing members is back in there on that board, when's the update?
Yeah, I can come back on that. It's very difficult to give a precise date, as the member would realise. It's quite a complicated situation with Gypsy traveller sites. It's not been helped, unfortunately, that we lost our legal officer in the last month as well, because there are a lot of legal issues to look at in relation to our needs assessment in terms of the whole of the county and the potential implications of taking enforcement action. So unfortunately, it's not as straightforward as a sort of another retrospective planning application for an extension or something. This is people living on a site and as a Gypsy traveller site as well. So I can't give a precise date, unfortunately, Councillor Jones, but as soon as we've got our legal information back, then I'll let local members know. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Gwyneth Kensler.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Sorry, this is to go back to the item number 5 on the Pendre site. It's only little, but Lenton Pool is constantly spelt wrongly. It is L-E-N-T-E-N, goes with Lent. So if that could be corrected to Lenton Pool.
I can see that halfway down page 11. Yeah.
Yes, in various places. And then on page, well, I have numbering 5, where Councillor Gwyneth Kensler offered in her opinions some material considerations. Those were, I think it just needs to be were rather than where. A typo, easily done. But I did make a statement where I was critical of the agent for virtually bullying us or threatening us. And I know it'll be on the webcam, but I'm just sorry that it's not down in the minutes, because that is not good enough to have agents threatening us. Yeah.
No, that's duly noted, diolch yn fawr. And yeah, let's pause it in a few places, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Diolch yn fawr. We're just on page 20 of the minutes, so we're moving on to that was agenda item number 8. Gran Rhyd Farmhouse was page 20. Page 21 was one in Melodon, and also the response to statutory application, and then page 22 was the end of the minutes. So can we have somebody propose that those minutes are a true record of the meeting from last month? Councillor Bob Murray and Councillor Gwyneth Kensler seconded. Diolch yn fawr. And again, if we just go, if there's no dissenting voices, then we will agree that those are a true record. So we'll just give people a few seconds to comment if they disagree with those minutes. Okay, so that those minutes have been agreed. So if we move on to the running order of today, so as you will see from the blue sheets, the running order today has slightly changed just because we do have one public speaker. So we're going to go for public agenda item number 6 first, and then 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So agenda item number 6, as we will see, is on page 63 of your reports. The ward is LLANARMON and Llandeigla. The ward member is Councillor Martin Holland. The application number is 15/2020/0988/PF. The proposal is the siting of a replacement static caravan for holiday accommodation use, formation of access track and associated works. The location is FFYNNON BERTH, LLANARMON Road, LLANFERRES, Mold. And we do have a public speaker on this item, and I can see that they are with us in the meeting. Just so you're aware, Mr. Blackburn, you will have 3 minutes to address the committee when you start speaking, and we are quite strict on that, so if you can make sure you restrict it. And this is Mr. Neil Blackburn, who is for the application. We don't have any speakers against the application. Okay, so when you're ready, you may address the committee, Mr. Blackburn.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I think hopefully everybody will have sort of read obviously the notes for the item, and I thank you for the opportunity to sort of speak up today. It's the first time I've done it, but I felt it was just would give a bit more sort of a wider view of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the sort of the 2 aspects of the track, location of the track, and the need for a replacement caravan. So the certificate of lawfulness for the caravan was agreed in October 20. It didn't specify at the time what the use would be, but we always wanted it for holiday use, and that's what this application's for. So it's part of a working farm, and the sort of holiday accommodation is to sort of for the farm to diversify and add extra income. And also we feel it will give some additional part-time employment for cleaning and maintenance, etc. So we feel there's a sort of wider sort of benefit to the economy than just ourselves. The site has actually been used for about 50 years. So previous sort of planning history is documented. So it's been continuous use for a long, long time, and it's always been holiday use. So it's really just sort of continuation of the same use, more so than a planning for or an application for additional change of use. Turning to the track, there's a track up into the farmstead currently, which sort of stops. So there's a house and a couple of barn conversions, but the route which was sort of proposed originally, or I think the preference of the AONB committee, was through the farmstead, and it would need to go through a garden, and that garden's occupied with a family, young children, dog, etc. And I just felt it wasn't appropriate from a health and safety point of view, with children playing in a garden, and to drive across somebody's grass. So I just didn't feel that was appropriate, and hence the sort of proposal of going through the field to the east. The original proposal I put forward was pretty much a straight line off the main track to the caravan site, which I think the AONB and the planning officer sort of raised some concerns over. So I did have a site meeting with the officer, which was really helpful, because I think it put into context that the going through the farmstead was not really appropriate. But I could fully accept that probably the route I'd come up with was a bit direct and would be a little bit, would sort of be more sort of obvious and visual to people in the area. So we kept. Sorry,
I'll have to stop you there because you're over your 3 minutes.
Okay, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, So do officers want to come in on this? I know the local member is Councillor Martin Holland, who is not here. He has sent an email. Did he send the email to everyone? Yeah. So I think you've all hopefully seen Councillor Martin Holland's email. Has anyone not seen it? If you haven't seen it, I can read it out. We will have.
I haven't seen it. Could I? Was it?
No, it's all right. It's just for councillors. It's.
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you.
I'll read it out. It's fine. What it says is basically. Let's have a look. The application reference number relates to a revised new drive. I'm happy to support the revised plan, which now shows the drive hugging the garden boundary of the existing buildings, which will be less obtrusive in what is open countryside within the AONB and highly visible from the A494. And then he's just asking officers, so perhaps officers can come back on this. Please, can we ensure that the site is well landscaped and that the additional trees and hedges are planted to screen it from the A494? So are officers okay with just coming in on that one?
Thank you, Chair. Morada. Yeah, officers are happy with that request from Councillor Holland. There's a raft of planning conditions that we've proposed should permission be granted, and they cover landscaping, implementation of landscaping, and actually the colouring of the replacement unit that's going to go onto that site so that it can be more recessive. So yeah, we're totally on board with what Councillor Holland's requesting, and the conditions are there to allow us to do that. Thank you.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. I'll bring in members who've got their hands raised. So Councillor Mervyn Parry first.
Thank you, Joe. I'll just take my. Can you everybody hear me with the camera on? Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. Just yeah. I'd just like to support this application. Propose the application. I can see that they've done quite a bit of work to try and please everybody with the altering of the track. Because there's a fairly good, substantial conditions there, as Paul Griffin has said about the planting. So I'd just like to propose that we grant this application.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Do we have a seconder for that?
Yeah, I'm happy.
Okay, got a couple more speakers. Cynghorydd Emrys-Wyn.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr. O'n i 'di edrych ymlaen at
I'd look forward to either propose or support this. Could I thank you for the fantastic photographs that have been presented with the application. It certainly helped me to come to a decision as to the suitability of adapting the track and so on towards the new holiday accommodation that's going to be erected here. I'll be very pleased to support the application.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Cynghorydd Gwyneth Censler.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Just question ynglyn â'r...
Thank you. Just a question regarding the caravan that's there. It's been there for 10 years, so they've had a license to have it there. There was no objection to the caravan being there over the past 10 years, was there?
Do you want me to answer this one?
No, thank you, Mr. Blackburn. No, it's okay.
All right. Okay. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
No, we're not aware of there being problems with that caravan. I mean, obviously it's come to our attention, hence the fact that we've had to deal with a certificate of lawfulness recently. But as far as I'm aware, we've not received complaints about the use of that caravan at that site. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We've had a proposal. We've had a seconder. I cannot see anyone else with their hand up. So in that case, we will go to the vote. So just to be clear on this one, okay, it's agenda item number 6 that we are voting on, and this would be the officer's recommendation is to grant the planning application. So it will be, when you're voting, it would be obliged for if you want to grant planning application, an Erbyn against if you want to go against it, or a Matel abstain if you want to do that. Okay. So if we are happy and everyone knows what they are doing, we will go through that. So Councillor Joan Butterfield. You're on mute, Joan. If you said it, sorry, I didn't hear you.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Ellie Chard.
4.
Thank you. Cynghorydd Gwyneth Ellis.
Obliged.
For.
Councillor Peter Evans.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Hughes isn't here. Councillor Brian Jones.
For.
Councillor Tina Jones.
For.
Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
Matal.
Abstain.
Councillor Christine Marston.
For.
For. Councillor Bob Murray.
For.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
For.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
For.
Councillor Peter Scott.
For.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
For.
Councillor Welch. And for. Cynghorydd Emily Swyn.
O blaid.
For.
You're on mute, Mark, if you're there.
No, I'm there.
No, go on, I haven't heard you yet. Mark, I didn't hear.
Yeah, I've definitely said, can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you now.
Yeah, 4.
There you go.
Sorry.
All right. And hopefully, if I haven't missed anyone out, have I? Just because I get the lists printed off and then there's some changes. So if you're on committee and I haven't called your name out, just shout. Okay. 1, 2. Okay, so we got 15 votes for, no against, 1 abstain. Therefore, that application has been granted in accordance with officer recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll leave the meeting now. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Blackburn.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 5. Okay, so we have no more speakers, just so we are aware of that. So agenda item number 5 is on page 23 of our reports. The ward is Llandrillo, the ward member is Cynghorydd Gwyneth Ellis. The application is 07/2021/0684/PF. The proposal is the erection of a 90-meter meteorological mast for a temporary period of 3 years. The location is at land at MYNYDD, Llandrillo, CORWEN. And as you will see, just if we look at the blue sheets, okay, there is a little bit of information on there. The officer recommendation is to grant. There's just a tiny little bit from NRW on there. Do officers want to come in on this or no? Okay, so bring in local member Cynghorydd Gwyneth Ellis. Do you want to come in now on this item?
Yeah, diolch yn fawr.
Yes, thank you. To begin with, I appreciate that the company have done a visual review of this mast, which shows from where the mast will be visible. But as far as I can see, it shows that the mast will be seen clearly from Cynwyd and Llandrillo villages. And I don't think that the residents are very happy. From speaking with the residents, they're finding it very difficult to differentiate this request with the idea of a wind farm that's going to follow. So I think that local residents are concerned, very concerned about the issue. Personally, I am also having difficulty to differentiate between the two. I'm concerned about this because of the visual impact that it's going to have on the villagers, and I would like to know from the officers what they think about that. Thank you.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Do officers want to just come in on that? Yeah, because obviously this is for one meteorological mast and we know what the potential futures are, but if they just come in on what we actually need to be going on today, that'd be great.
Yeah, diolch, thank you very much, Chair. Yes, thank you, Councillor Ellis, for the comments. I think anything of this sort of size in the landscape is going to have some visual impact. That clearly, from an officer perspective, what we have to do is try and assess whether any sort of impacts are significant enough to warrant a reason for refusal. And I think there's some material considerations and background to this that obviously was leading us to our recommendation to grant here. one is clearly the members at planning committee today, that they've got to put just the assessment of this application in their mind and not anything else in relation to potentially a future wind farm, because obviously there'll be a full assessment of any further development that might take place in the future on this site. This is just an application for this single meteorological mast. So please make sure that you're making a determination just solely on this proposal that's before you. The second thing is that obviously there's a bit of history to this site as well in relation to sort of masts being erected in this location. And also I think what we have to do as officers is take the guidance from the information that we've had supplied in terms of the landscape and visual impact assessment, and the input that we've had from a body such as Natural Resources Wales, who are responsible for the protection of the landscape and other environmental features. So we've obviously gone to Natural Resources Wales. They've put their comments there for you on the blue sheet. So I think from an officer perspective, I think I fully appreciate where Councillor Ellis is coming from in relation to the potential localized impact of a structure of this size. Clearly that there is going to be an impact. The question for us as a planning committee, based on the planning history, based on the advice that we've had from Natural Resources Wales, and for the fact that it's a temporary 3-year period and will be removed then, we as officers think it's an acceptable impact. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Do we have any other speakers on this item?
Chair, can I just come in if possible, please?
Yep, Councillor Mark.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay. I can't see anything off.
You're going to turn your video off.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, is that better? Yeah, so the safety to aircraft, etc. I can't see anything in the paperwork. Has that been looked into? So the Civil Aviation Authority, I know these regulations in place. I know it's temporary, but I would have expected some sort of confirmation they're happy, because obviously they do training in the area, etc. So has that been covered just from a safety point of view? And I'd expect a comment somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the officers want to come in on that now. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think in the main report there is some correspondence, consultation response from both the MOD and the National Air Traffic Services body, raising no objections. So I think that has been covered, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Brian Jones.
Yeah, just as a matter of interest, I know it's not to do with this planning application as such, but do we know how big any potential wind farm might be? Question one. Question two, is there any truth in the rumours that blades for these wind farms are being developed up that are actually transparent and you won't be able to see them?
Okay, I don't know whether I mean, like you said, it's not part of the application today, but officers can come in if they want.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can't comment on the second part of Councillor Jones's question, really, in relation to the type of blades that are in development at the moment. I think there is a little bit of information in the main report around the potential wind farm, and clearly, whilst I emphasise at the start of this, we can't have any regard to any potential future wind farm here, or the size of that potential wind farm. I think within the report it does sort of state that there are sort of specific areas designated across Wales for where potential wind farms could go, and this appears to sit within that area. But clearly, if there was potentially going to be a wind farm here, it would be a whole different planning process that would need to go through. Again, one that we would be bringing reports and consultations back to planning committee on. So you just have to focus on the application before you today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Mervyn-Parry.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. on just on what Paul was saying about only focusing what's in front of us today. Unfortunately, I'm not 100% agreeing with that, really, because this is like opening a gate to another field, really, because the idea of putting this mast up is to do some feasibility work for future wind farms, and I think it should all be part of the same application myself, because although we're allowed to comment and remark on this mast that's going up, when any feasibility work comes about that might justify the need for a wind farm, we as Denbighshire County Council won't be allowed to give our comments on that, because as with the other wind farms that we've had in Clocaenog and the Brennig, we're allowed to comment on them, but the ultimate decision is made down in Cardiff by Welsh Government. So I feel that it's a bit like building on a 25-acre house of building house, and somebody puts one bungalow in the corner but wants to build another 40 houses in the same field. The same, it's the start of a development. And I think that the whole development, the whole idea should come under one application and not a smoke screen by putting a mast in to show what it's doing and then putting the wind farm planning behind it. We won't have a chance to comment on any work from this. That'll be Welsh Government. So that's where my feeling is on it. And I propose we object to this mast.
Can you just say that again? You propose that we object to it, so
to this mast, that it should come in as one application. If it's work to be done on the wind farm, if it's work to be done as a feasibility for a future wind farm, that it should come in as part of them, as part of the whole application, and not putting in as piecemeal applications for what's happening. You know, that's my reason for objection on it.
Okay, deal. I'll just bring in the officers on that. I might need to bring in the legal officer just on that one as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That was what I was going to say. Actually, we might need to bring the legal officer in here. I mean, I think the facts of the matter are it is a lawful planning application that's been made. That's what you need to understand, that this is procedure. Back in 2010, we followed the same procedure, and we as a council granted planning permission for a 70-metre high mast, meteorological mast, for a temporary period. So there's history here in terms of what Denbighshire County Council has done on this site with a mast. And again, what we've got to distinguish is between this proposal and whatever may come in the future. And I emphasise the word may. This is a procedural matter that we've got to deal with what's in front of us. We can't say we can't determine this application because it should be part of a different application. That's not possible. That's not legal. We've got a lawful planning application before us. I think the other point that I want to make is obviously Councillor Parry was saying that we won't have chance to comment on any wind farm. That's not correct. Clearly, we've
point of order, Paul. That's not what I said. I said we would be able to comment. We wouldn't be able to make the decision on it, as with the ones in Clocaenog. We were allowed to comment, but the ultimate decision is made down in Cardiff.
Apologies if I've misunderstood what you said, Councillor Parry. I heard you say that we wouldn't be able to comment, but you're right. The ultimate decision is made by Welsh Government on nationally significant infrastructure projects, of which any large-scale wind farm would be. But clearly we do bring reports to Planning Committee seeking member input into what's known as a local impact report that go to the Welsh Government in relation to our council view on whether we're supportive or not of any proposed wind farm. So we do have an opportunity. I think that's why I want to emphasise it's not that we don't have a say at all and that Cardiff just makes the decision. That's not the case. We do have a process to follow, and clearly we do have an opportunity to comment on any larger wind farm. So I think we need to just maybe get a legal point of order here in relation to this type of application and whether it's lawful to determine it today. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, yeah, diolch yn fawr. Robin Jones, are you able to come in at this point for us?
Bore da, diolch yn fawr iawn. Good morning, everybody. Yes, I think the reason for refusal, as suggested, would not be defensible on an appeal, because effectively it would be wholly unreasonable to require any developer to wrap up a feasibility study as part of a full-scale development, because there was no developer in their right mind would actually approach development on that basis, and that clearly a feasibility study as a standalone application is just for that and for nothing more. And clearly the argument would also be that if you permit today's application, it may well be that the feasibility study will show that the site is not suitable either for a land development or for any development at all. So in that sense, it is a standalone application which needs to be determined on its merits irrespective of what the application may or may not lead to at any future date. Thank you.
Okay, diolch yn fawr, thank you. I've got obviously 3 hands up there. I can see Mervyn, your hand's still up. Do you want to just, have you got any comments on what the legal officer's just said there? Or do you want to?
No, not really. I just, I still stand by my comments.
Okay. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn?
Yeah, diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. We said that there was a little bit of history in relation to the mast. Looking at the photographs, I can see 3 wind turbines on the horizon, and you get the impression that there is some kind of attitude, oh, this is just one extra one to what is already there, and therefore the impact isn't that bad. But this is what happens. These things grow gradually, they develop. It's this creeping effect, and that's what concerns me. By allowing one, it leads to allowing something else which follows, and that's maybe what's happened in the past by allowing wind turbines. I'm not generally against erecting wind turbines if there is room for them, but this mast itself, I do have my concerns that this is part of this creeping in effect that tends to happen in such applications. And I'm willing to support Councillor Mervyn Parry that we object the application.
Okay, I'll bring in Councillor Brown-Jones. Get your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. No one more than me more passionate about areas of outstanding natural beauty. For many years, without going too far off the subject, I sit on the top of Gwaun and look out from there above Prestatyn over to Llandudno, over to the Wirral, and does dishearten me when I look at them wind farms. But I can take myself out of that sort of emotion and picture. And when time is with us no more, green energy will have to support communities globally. And again, unfortunately, wind turbines and wind farms are a part of that jigsaw. And so on the basis of that, although I'm not sort of right behind it and personally don't agree with it all, I would propose that we accept this application, because if it does prove a worthwhile exercise, and if a wind farm develops from there, that will be for the benefit more than the negatives, unfortunately. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Peter Scott, I've seen, has got his hand raised. Thank you very much. Just so we've got that boxed off. I mean, yeah, you know, I've had quite a lot of history with wind farms in my ward, and I do understand people's points, but we have to be very aware that this is a temporary one. It's not, you know, I've had ones in my ward which have been a full-term one for 25 years, and, you know, they have been objected to because there is that creeping effect. But we'd have to just be very, very aware of what we are voting on today, which is one temporary one. Not one permanently, which could then cause creep. So I think Paul Mead wants to come in.
Yeah, it was just to really echo what you said there, Chair, and obviously to support what Councillor Jones has just said, really around the bigger picture. But clearly we have to come back to what we're assessing here today. It's a temporary structure to assess the feasibility of potentially having a wind farm in this location, as the legal officer has outlined. You know, that has to be assessed on its merits. We've given you quite a clear report today with the responses from the environmental body, Natural Resources Wales, in relation to the impacts of this. So again, it does come down to what feasible and defensible reasons you would have to try and refuse this application. And I don't think I've heard that so far from any of the members. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, can I come back in?
Yep.
I'll ask Paul a question, and maybe you can answer it, and how the difference is. If somebody goes for a planning application for a dwelling, and there is a need for an archaeological dig to be made on that application, the archaeological dig needs to be made before the actual planning for the house can actually be put in. So, and then it comes part of the whole planning. So on a similar thing, if somebody needs to do a feasibility study on whether there's any wind on a site for a windmill, surely that should come as the same planning application for the whole site. You know, I don't see why one should be any different from another, really. So maybe you can explain that to me. If somebody's trying to make an application, that the whole application should come in together. And if it doesn't work for the applicants, then it doesn't work for the applicants. Same as it wouldn't if somebody was doing an archaeological dig and it doesn't work for the developer, it doesn't work. So, you know, that's my reason of objecting on the grounds that it should come in under one application.
Okay, diolch yn fawr.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Parry. I mean, it's difficult to compare different aspects of the planning process here. I think you've heard from the legal officer that this is a feasible planning process that's being followed to get feasibility to assess whether this location is suitable for.
Can I ask if that's his opinion or is that a written?
It's legal fact, Councillor Parry. It's in a similar way that where maybe an agricultural business wants to prove that somebody could live on a particular site. There's a process whereby people could put in an application for a temporary caravan to live on the site whilst their business grows. That's an aspect of the planning process that is valid and lawful. Again, this is a valid and lawful planning application that's been made. So I think trying to compare it to other different examples to do with archaeology is not really helpful in this instance. I don't know whether the legal officer's got anything else he might want to just comment on the example that's given by Councillor Parry, but I think clearly there are other examples within the planning process where people can apply for things before they apply for larger things. I gave you that example there of agricultural workers' dwellings. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, the legal officer, Robin Jones, trying to come in on that.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Yes, I'd say that the issue of archaeology vis-a-vis residential development is a bit more tangential than is the issue of the existence of wind with regard to wind turbines. Diolch.
Okay, yeah. So we've obviously got the facts are we've got a planning application in front of us. And I think what the legal officer is saying and what Paul Mead is saying, we can't refuse it and say that, well, it should. I totally get your point, Councillor Parry. We get lots of applications and they come in and they do this, that and that, and they do a little bit here and a little bit there and it keeps on going and then suddenly you've got what you don't want. But I think what we've got in front of us is obviously an application that we need to make a decision on, and we've got a proposal for it and a seconder. We've obviously got a proposal to go against it, and the reason for that, the legal officer is obviously clearly stating that reason to go against is not valid. So we just need to come to a conclusion, because I think obviously if this did get refused, we'd obviously need those valid planning reasons to refuse this. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn.
Yeah, I just dod yn ôl yn sydyn.
Yes, could I just come back briefly, please? Could I concentrate on this application in itself and my reason, the reason why I'm not comfortable about it? It is going to affect the horizon for the people who live in CAERWYS and LLANDRILLO and the wider area as well, looking towards MYNYDD. Also, the work of erecting the mast itself is going to have an impact on the land that is of scientific and natural interest. And there are additional reasons, in my opinion, that are worthy of consideration whilst considering this application. It's not an objection to any kind of wind turbines in general. I tend to be in favour of them, but it's important that we consider carefully where these things go. This isn't an application for wind turbines, but for a mast, in additional to 3 other structures that are there already. Again, I'll refer to this term creeping in, and that's what concerns me.
Diolch. Cynghorydd Gwyneth Ennis.
Diolch yn fawr. Mae'n nghysylltiad i chydig bach yn wan ar hyn o bryd.
Thank you. My connection is a bit weak at the moment, so I haven't been able to follow everybody's contribution. But I must say that I agree with Councillor Mervyn Parry. That is, there would be no application to do this. If the company were to make an application to have a wind farm on MYNYLLOD and that application was refused, then there would be no need for this mast. And I do think that something as this big and with such an impact on the local community that it should be considered as a whole. But I do accept what officers say, that this is a legal application and that we must consider it as it stands. I think the visual impact that this mast is going to have is much greater than the mast. It's much higher than the mast that was there 10 years ago. That was 70 meters high. This is going to be 90 meters high. It's so much higher than the current wind turbines that are there, and it will be much more visible from the communities of LLANDRILLO and CAERWYS. And my feeling is that I want to object on that basis, that the visual impact is too much. Thank you.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. So we've obviously got the visual impact to consider there as well, which obviously would be a valid planning consideration. Do we have any other speakers on this item? Just see. Okay. Do officers have any comments on the visuals?
No, you're absolutely right, Chair. It's a material planning consideration. I suppose, as I've said in many planning committee meetings where we're potentially going to go against officer recommendation with any particular reason, it's about an evidence base and potentially standing up in an appeal, going against the advice of Natural Resources Wales on landscape and visual impact based on the fact that they've submitted a report on that. So again, yeah, it's a material consideration. I understand members' concerns, but from an officer perspective, what else can I say? But we've listened to the advice of the specialists on this, but the local member, if she wants to go against that and go for a landscape or visual impact reason for refusal, that's a material planning consideration, just whether we can defend it or not. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so if I just go back to the proposer was Councillor Mervyn Parry. Obviously, the local member has suggested a reason for refusal there. What you would obviously need to agree with that, otherwise we need a different proposer and a seconder. So do you want to come in there, Councillor?
I'm happy to have that added on to the reason for objections, Chair.
Okay, so that would be obviously the main valid planning reason with a note to say that you obviously would have preferred it to have come in all as one.
Exactly, yes. I'd like to see the whole application coming in as one, as a pre-planning application for that to go with whatever's behind this application, to all come in as one. And I think they'd probably get it that way. But I'd just like to think that we're asked to comment on certain things and not on other parts of the application, or not comment on decision making. Sorry.
Okay. Diolch yn fawr. Yeah, so if I just bring in the legal officer on this one, if that's okay. So,
Chair, if I may.
Yep. Go on then.
Yeah, just quick on. I think you didn't hear my question all before. So I understand the conditions of the administrative defence, etc. They're asking for information of location, height, and the type of lighting. Who is responsible for saying they're happy with all that? Is that the planning authority? Is it the contractor? Because it doesn't, when I read it, it's not clear who's going to be responsible. And without doubt, it's important to get this right. So providing information doesn't mean it's going to be okay and up to scratch. So the location of it and etc. Who actually says that the information is okay? Is that going to be the planning authority, building regs? Could you just confirm that before the vote, please?
Yep, thank you. Okay, I'm just bringing officers for that one.
So I think what Councillor Young's asking is the sort of potential safety considerations of low-flying aircraft, is it, Councillor Young, in terms of whether I certainly from a planning perspective, all that we can do as a local planning authority and as a council is consult with relevant bodies, which we've done, and it's in the report in relation to what responses they've given. Obviously, if there was a huge concern that this was going to be a danger to low-flying aircrafts, then we would have heard that from the consultees. Likewise, if there is any other consenting regime that they have, I'm not aware of that, whether any of these sort of aviation authorities, these applicants that are looking to put up this temporary mast have to apply for some other sort of license to build it at that height. I'm not aware of that. So in this instance, what you're doing as a council is potentially granting planning permission for this temporary meteorological mast, which is there to ascertain whether the conditions are going to be right to potentially put a wind farm there. We've consulted with the relevant bodies, Natural Resources Wales, the aviation bodies, etc. They've given their responses, and there's nothing in there to suggest that that anyone's objecting to it in that regard. So I hope that answers the question. I honestly can't answer whether there is any other sort of consenting regime from an aviation perspective that these applicants would have to go through. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, if you look at the conditions as well, condition 4 is just saying who they have to notify about the precise location, date of commencement, and the minimum intensity 25 flagship red lights and so on. So there are some conditions there which I think cover what you've said as well. Is that all right, Councillor Young?
I'm surprised that it's not clear who actually says it's okay, the information provided, but I understand that they've raised no objections, but I don't think it's clear enough, but I'll leave it there, Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, so just to state where we're at the moment, we've obviously had we've had a proposal for, and that's been seconded, and then we've had a proposal against, which has been seconded. We've had a reason for refusal about the visual impact, but we also want to include, or that the person, the proposer, Councillor Perry, wants to include something with regards to it being one site. So can I just bring in the legal officer on that, just to clear up how we can phrase that if that's okay.
I would be minded to advise you to try and keep anything off the decision notice which relates to the feasibility application being part of the main application, because on the basis that that is given as part of a reason for refusal, you will be highly vulnerable on costs if the matter goes to appeal just on that particular reason, even though you may be successful on the visual amenity point. So it'd be better to include it as some form of informative on a covering letter or something of that nature, rather than included on the decision notice. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Parry would be happy to do that as have it on a covering letter with regards.
I don't think they take any notice of that at all, Chair. I think that it should come in as one application. That would be my thought of it, that it should be part of the whole application. We shouldn't refuse them just on cost. I know cost is an important thing, but we shouldn't be held, the gun shouldn't be held to our head just over the cost neither. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so obviously that's the legal officer's view is that we can obviously go to the vote. So just to be very, very clear with this one, obviously you can propose to grant this in accordance with officer recommendation. If you go against the officer recommendation to refuse this, it would be on the reasons given by Councillor Mervyn Parry then. It would be on a visual impact, and it would also be on the information that he's just outlined about this wanting to be one application. So it's very important that we know you would be voting for both those reasons if you vote to go against this application. Cynghorydd Gwyneth Ellis, as local member, I see you've got your hand up. I'll bring you in just now, and then we will go to the vote.
Thank you, diolch, Joe. Cadeirydd, my personal
feeling is that we should be voting against this on the visual impact. We deferred the decision last time because it wasn't obvious how visible this mast would be. The work the company has done, and I appreciate that they've done that, shows that it will be clearly visible from most of the houses in the local village. And I think that is the main reason for objecting. I agree with Councillor Parry. I'm not happy that there are two different processes going to be. We should be going through one planning process, but I think we should be listening to the legal officer here and not using that as a reason to object, but to make it clear that we do feel that way and put something in the letter. That is my feeling on this. Thank you.
Okay, deal. Councillor Brian Jones, you want to come in?
Sorry, Chair, could you just clearly state what we're voting on now? I think I've got it, but there was a veil of a bit of a confusion here. Now, when you're going to go to the vote, please can you clarify it for members, please?
Yeah, no, it is a bit of a confusing one. It's also difficult having people in lots of different rooms, just to get people to come in. So that's why it's fine. We're taking our time on it because we've got to get it right. So just in terms of, we've obviously had a slightly conflicting arguments there from people who are against the application. So just to bring in officers and possibly the legal officer from my point of view now, is there a way we could decide whether we're the people going against, because obviously some people might want to refuse the application on visual, but not both of the items. So is there some way we could do that as a precursor to the final vote? Does that make sense, what I've just said?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, Joe. Thank you. And again, I will bring in the legal officer on this. The way I look at it is that clearly there's a for and against here in relation to whether planning committee wants to grant planning permission, temporary planning permission here in accordance with officer recommendation, or to refuse planning permission. So I think there might be a first vote in relation to a for or against. I suppose if the application then is refused, we could potentially have a second vote, which would be then in relation to whether we have a single reason for refusal as advised by the legal officer on visual grounds, or whether it's two reasons for refusal, which would be visual grounds and some sort of procedural concern around how the application has been made. Again, just to re-emphasise what the legal officer said, what I'm saying, I think what Councillor Gwyneth Ellis has now alluded to, she probably realises that that second reason for refusal would not be defendable and would result in potentially the awarding of costs against the council, but we could potentially put that on as an informative or an additional letter that goes. So again, before we get into that debate around how to vote, we might want to go back and again ask councillors as to what they think about the proposal to refuse on the single or the double grounds, really. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. If I just bring in the legal officer, is it okay to do it that way round? So we could have a vote for or against and then have a vote on the reasons. Would that be okay to do it that way round?
Yes, on the basis that visual amenity is going to be a part of the reason for refusal in any event. If people vote in the first place, they will be at least voting for that, if plus something else. So yes, I think that makes more sense to proceed in that basis, provided everybody understands that that is the first vote. Thank you.
Okay, right. So I'm going to make this as clear as I can. Again, if we don't, this is a reasonably unusual one in terms of voting. So please do ask if you are not crystal clear about it. It's very important to do that. So we're going to have, well, potentially we're going to have two votes. Obviously, if it gets granted, on the first vote, we will only have that first vote. So on the very first vote, you are going to either vote for, or you're going to vote against, or you're going to vote abstain. If you're voting against, that is, you are either voting, you're voting obviously because you want to refuse the application on one or two grounds. So it could be either of those options. If the entire vote then goes against, then we will have another vote and we will vote to either be one reason for refusal or whether there are two reasons for refusal. Okay, so we're sort of having a secondary vote on the actual reasons for refusal. But as Robin Jones said, one of the reasons for refusal is on visual impact. So that would be what you would be voting on the first vote. And then it's whether you want to have an additional reason as the second vote. Is that clear?
If I can come in, Chair, sorry to be pedantic, yeah. So on this first vote then, in layman terms, if you do not want the mast, you're going to vote for this on this vote, correct?
No.
Going to vote for that at all.
No. I mean, if you're for this, if you're for the application and you want to go, it's simple. You vote for it. You're going to vote for it. It's not a problem at all. The issue we've got is we've got obviously two different councillors who both want to vote against the application, but there are slightly different reasons for refusing. When we don't have this very often, so we're just trying to get to the situation. If you want to vote for the application, you vote for it. Okay, so I think Councillor Brian Jones, obviously you've proposed this for, so you're going to vote for.
Exactly, yeah, that's it. That's what we're getting to, yeah, for. Yeah.
You're going to be
Thank
for.
you, Chair.
Councillor Peter Scott, you seconded it, so I imagine you're going to vote for it as well. If you are against it, for either the one or the two reasons that you're against it, you're going to vote on the first vote, you're going to vote against it. Then we'll have a secondary vote. That would just be on the against bit.
Yeah, God.
Okay. Councillor Maydick Davis.
God.
You're on, not on
Can I ddod I mewn?
You're not on mute.
Can I ddod I mewn, Mr
I'm
Cadeirydd?
sorry to come in here, Chair, but could I ask, Robin, I don't see that you are keeping to the rules of the County Council regarding voting here. If I remember rightly, if there is a proposal or a second proposal, and that goes up first, the second. If the improvement loses, you can ask for another amendment, and that amendment in this respect would be the impact on the visual impact. You could then vote on that completely. I don't know whether Robin agrees, but you're making it quite complicated the way you're going about it, if I can say, as former chair of the council.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Cynghorydd Maydick Davis. We do sometimes vote that way. This is quite an unusual one, but anyway. Robin, do you want to come in on that?
Dwi'n meddwl bod chi'n dechnegol, bod chi'n gywir yn yr hyn da chi'n
I
dweud.
think you're technically correct in what you're saying. You could start with an amendment including the two reasons for refusing, but what I think there's enough complications as it is that following technical rules would add to the confusion rather than make it clearer. Thank you.
Agree. I think we're going to go for or against or abstain, and then we can work on the reasons for against after if it gets refused. I think that is the clearest thing. So this is just like a regular vote, the first one. If it goes through, then we obviously don't need the second vote. Okay. And again, when you're voting, okay, if you want to say a sentence like I am for this application or I am against it, whatever, then that's fine to make your feelings very, very clear. And we will go through it that way. Okay. So going to the vote, so this will be or blaid for if you are for the application, then erbyn against if you are against it for one or two reasons, ymatel abstain is the third option. Okay, Councillor Joan Butterfield.
For.
For, thank you. Councillor Ellie Chard.
For.
Cynghorydd Gwyneth Ellis.
Yn erbyn.
Against.
Can't hear you. Councillor Peter Evans.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Brian Jones.
For.
Councillor Tina Jones.
For.
I didn't hear you clearly, sorry, Tina.
For.
For. Oh, I can't hear you, sorry, and it might be close.
For.
Thank you. Yep, got you there. Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
Yn erbyn.
Against.
Marston.
For.
Councillor Bob Murray.
For.
Councillor Mervyn Perry.
Against.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
For.
Councillor Peter Scott.
For.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
For.
Councillor Joe Welch. For. Cynghorydd Emily Swyn.
Yn erbyn.
Against.
Yeah, can you hear me, Chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, for.
Thank you. Okay.
$11.5.
I can count. Councillor Scott. I just double count just to make sure.
I'm just talking to myself, Chair. Very, very sorry. I hadn't turned my mute off.
Okay, we have 11 votes for, 5 against, no abstains. We don't need a second vote. There we go. Nice.
Hooray.
Application has been granted in accordance with officer recommendation. Okay, there you go. Just so the legal officer knows, we planned all this just to make it difficult for you on the one time that you were with us. We had a big chat beforehand.
It only gets better, Chair.
No, we didn't really. Okay. So agenda item, moving on to agenda item 7. I'm just looking, is everyone still okay to stay and we don't need a break or anything? Okay, agenda item number 7 is on page 93 of our report. The ward is RHYL South East. The ward members are Councillors Brian Blakely, Cheryl Williams, Councillor Brian Jones. The application number is 45/2021/0738/PC. The proposal is a retrospective application for the change of use of dwelling, use class C3 to form a house of multiple occupancy, use class C4 for 4 people. I know there's a couple of people that want to come in on this before we go to the debate. Councillor Brian Jones, as local member, did you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I would like to propose a deferral on this application on the grounds that any decision on what is a locally controversial application might have a direct effect on resident voting intentions, as it's so close to the 5th of May election. And actually this deferral will apply as well to item 8 on the agenda and item 9.
Okay, so we've got a request for a deferral. Obviously, we're going to have to bring in the legal officer on this one, because obviously the reason for a deferral does need to be a valid material planning consideration. So did you hear that, Robin? You got any comments on that for deferral?
Yes, I did hear that. It is not a planning reason, but there are rules with regard to the behaviour and conduct of local authorities in the lead up to election periods. And one of them is clearly that, and I'm sure your officers would have been mindful that any issue which was regarded to be politically controversial as part of an election campaign would have been left off the agenda. So I'm not in a position to be able to make that judgment, but clearly it's an option that's available to the committee if it is felt that the issue is contrary to the guidance in the lead up to local elections. Diolch.
Okay, diolch. So it is more of an opinion one, this one. So yeah, okay, I'll bring in the officers.
Chair, if I can come back in after the officers, please.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think there's 2 issues here. As the legal officer said, normally with any sort of deferral request, we'd have to have a material planning reason. What is slightly different in this instance is that we're in the pre-election period. So the question there is, do any of the planning applications that are presented to planning committee within the pre-election period hit that trigger for potentially having some impact on the sort of political decision making during that pre-election period? There was actually one application that was proposed to go on our committee today that we did liaise with our legal officer, who suggested that be taken off planning committee. That was an application in the Prestatyn area at Alexander Drive. However, the 3 applications here in RHYL, given that they're currently it's retrospective, effectively the properties are being used for this purpose. The advice was that these were okay to keep on in relation to that. So that's the advice that I can give, unfortunately, on this one, is that's why they're on this planning committee, because we didn't feel that it was hitting that pre-election period criteria. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Brian Jones.
Yeah, I don't know how far I can go to add meat on to what I've proposed as a deferral, but what I would...
Sorry to cut you off. I think I think it is more of an opinion of officers that they didn't feel it was going to be controversial. I think if you feel that it is, then I think that is.
Well, it's clearly controversial because it's been going on, this matter, since before the autumn last year, June. There there's communications that have gone to and fro that Brian Jones, as the local member for 3 RHYL South East, was not included on, and so it's been whipped up. And actually, I've got to say, I think the officers have been naive here. They should have known at local level that this was going to be a controversial application running up to the election, which it is at local level. And I'm being put on the spot to make a decision today when I shouldn't be. Mr. Meads mentioned the other one, the other application that didn't come on the agenda today. You could have made a perfectly good argument for that, to be honest. So that's why I'm proposing the deferral, so no dirty washing comes out.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Joan Butterfield, you got your hand raised.
I'd be happy to second the proposal that's just been put forward by Councillor Brian Jones. I do think that it could be a bit of a political football, if you like, and I think that perhaps it might well be taken out of the arena until after the election. But I do believe that this has been, I don't want to debate at all other than just to say that this has been an issue since January of this year. And I feel it should have come to planning before this date, but I'm quite happy to second a deferral. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so we've obviously had that. We can't, I can see people got, Mark, you got your hand up. Obviously, this can only be on the deferral, not the actual item itself. So, Councillor Mark Young.
No, I'll leave it there, Chair.
Okay.
I think we've spoken enough. We'll go to the vote, please. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, we can go to the vote. We've obviously got the reason there, which is fine to have the deferral. You can obviously vote against it. If you don't feel like it is a political issue in the lead up to the election, then obviously you could vote against, and saying you want to hear the agenda item being heard today.
Yeah, Chair, does this cover the 3 items?
Well, that's what I'm just going to bring in the legal officer. I imagine we might have to do all 3 individually, as they're all 3 individual applications, but possibly legal officer, do you know if we can vote on all 3 at the same time?
I think that provided that it's fairly clear that you're voting on all 3 and all the planning issues are the same in each one, are they not? So I think probably 1 vote should cover all 3, provided everybody in the committee is happy with that and they understand the implications of that 1 vote deferring the 3 items. Thank you.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Right, okay, so that's clear. Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you. After what Councillor Joan Butterfield said, can the officers explain why this has taken so long to come to the committee? Why didn't it come to committee sooner? What are the reasons for that?
Okay, I'll bring in Cynghorydd Gwyneth Ellis. Do you want to ask your question as well? Then I'll bring in the officers.
Diolch Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Chair. We've got a planning committee today. I don't think there are many more political issues than wind farms. So I think we should be considering the proposals that come before committee. Everybody is going to think that things in their ward are political and should be delayed, maybe, but I think we should be discussing what's before the committee.
Have that vote in just a moment. I'll just bring in the officers on Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler's point.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just on that final point, I mean, obviously it's different from an officer perspective in terms of the applications that we have before. Is that the question would be, you know, should we have a committee at all in the pre-election period? But we do have an obligation as well to applicants who are fee paying, who want their applications determined within the statutory 8-week period as well. So we do have a responsibility, certainly from a business and an economic perspective, to keep planning applications moving forward. But obviously, I understand the issue in relation to this case and the reason for the deferral, which is perfectly fine. I think the other point that was raised there around timing, these 3 cases in RHYL do go back some time as sort of effective issues. They basically stem from the COVID pandemic and the need for Betsy Cadwallader to sort of try and locate on a really emergency basis doctors and nurses in an area. So I think the properties has started some time ago, but the actual planning applications themselves have been a little bit more recent. So in relation to the determination period, the consultations that we've had to do with relevant consultees, etc., that's where the timings come from in terms of the actual planning applications. But I think, as some of the RHYL members have alluded to, that these issues with these properties on the Aberkinsey estate have been going on for some time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. I think we will go to the vote now. It's pretty clear what we are voting on. You either want to hear them today or you don't, because you feel that they are controversial and shouldn't be heard in a pre-election period. So that's nice and clear. And we will be voting on agenda items 7, 8 and 9. Unless anyone has an objection to voting on all three at the same time, please say now whether you have an objection to voting on all three. Now, otherwise we will assume that this is the same. They are the same. It's for the same reasons. Okay. So it will be for or blind if you're voting for a deferral, an admin against if you're voting against the deferral, and you want to hear them today, or abstain. Okay. So Councillor Joan Butterfield. For deferral. Thank you. Councillor Ellie Chard.
For.
Cynghorydd Gwyneth Ellis.
Yn erbyn.
Against.
Councillor Peter Evans.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Tina Jones. Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
Yn erbyn.
Against.
For. Councillor Bob Murray.
For.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
For.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
For.
Councillor Peter Scott.
For.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
For.
Joe Welch. For. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn.
Yn erbyn.
Against.
For.
Thank you.
How many was that, Pete?
13-3.
Okay, we have Orblyde 4. We have 13 votes, and Edwin against 3 votes. Still abstain 0. Therefore, those 3 items have been deferred until a future planning committee. Obviously, part of the reason my officers try to get them is because there isn't a planning committee in May, so it is 8 weeks away, the next planning committee. Anyway, there we go. Agenda item number 10 is on page 141 of your reports. So the ward is Tremechion, the ward member is Councillor Christine Marston, the application number is 47/2021/0432/PC. The proposal is the retrospective application for the change of use of ground floor from a public house use class A3 to offices use class B1. The location is the Travellers Inn, CAERWYS Mould CH75BL. There are no speakers on this item. Does the local member want to come in on this?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the former Travellers Inn in CAERWYS, it's situated on the A55 at the top of RHYL, on the boundary of Denbighshire and Flintshire, and within the AONB. This is a retrospective planning application for the conversion of the downstairs former public house into offices for Thomas Plant Hire. Residents locally have raised concerns with this development due to the historic conditions being breached on the main Thomas Plant site, which is about 500 yards down the Llwybr Hir, adjacent to the A55, in the former Sundown Nursery site in Flintshire. Tremechion Cwm and Wine Community Council have raised no objections, but have requested conditions. If I just sort of go through some of the conditions and ask officers to just sort of talk me through and their sort of rationale behind them. It's a B1 class only to remove permitted development rights. So just to explain what are removing the permitted development rights. Condition 3, all classes of Part 41, Schedule 2 of a Town and Country Planning Order. What does that mean? No HGVs or buses are to be parked on the site, but if you refer to your page 163 and the photo that is taken of the Travellers Inn, there is a HGV parked there. And that does happen on a regular occurrence. So can officers please just clarify that? No plant machinery or equipment skips. Does that include car sales, as this activity has been carried out recently in this location? No external lighting without written permission to protect the dark skies of our AONB. So can you just clarify, will they need planning permission if they want to put spotlights there? Operational hours requested 24/7. Is this reasonable? It is covered in the planning officer's report 4.2.3 about the residential amenity. But what office would want to work 24/7? Can you just sort of clarify why this is there and why can't we have opening hours more reflective of typical working hours? And will this location be used to park trucks up and access gain 24/7 days a week? I think that is the concern of the residents, that this will be used as a subsidiary site to the main proposal, and what they don't want is HGVs parked up there. So can officers just sort of clarify some of those points? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, bring in Paul Griffin, thanks.
Joel, quite a few points to try and remember there, so forgive me if I forget some. You can always remind me. Yeah, first off, B1 use, that we're limiting it to strictly what they're asking for, so that's a sort of administrative type office, and so to avoid, and for the interest of clarity, we're conditioning that it is as what they've asked for and it doesn't drift into any other use. I think the next point you then referred to was heavy goods vehicles on the road. Well, from the photographs that we've seen and having discussed it with officers beforehand, those HGVs that are seen in the photographs are actually on the public highway. And so that would be an issue for either a highway team to deal with or the police if it was causing obstruction on the public highway. The planning authority in this instance wouldn't have any control over who parks on the public highway or not. So that's, again, an issue. It could be anyone, it could be related to that issue there. But my advice would be that if it becomes a problem, that would be a matter for the police in the first instance. The use of car sales, well, I think that probably reflects the sort of the site's former discontinued use. Whoever owned it has got the land there, they're using it to car sales. What this permission, if granted, wouldn't allow is car sales. That's clearly a different use to a B1 office. And so if there were car sales being undertaken on that land, that would be in breach of planning, and we'd be reporting that to our enforcement team if necessary. Yeah, to clarify, external lighting to protect the dark skies. There's also a secondary issue there that I think the Welsh Government Transport Agency are interested to make sure that there's no lighting going on that site for the interest of safety on the A55. But you're quite right. If they wanted to put external lighting up, they would need consent from ourselves in the first instance. The operational hours, yes, they've asked for 24 hours. And I think as officers, we've obviously gone through this and thought, is that normal to have a 24-hour office? But when you read their submitted statement, you can see that they were actually working 7 till 10 as part of their head office to run the plant hire business. But then they were looking to install CCTV and possibly the use of security guards relating to the site in Flintshire. Now, as we're aware that some people have got issues with the site in Flintshire because they're not adhering to the conditions that have been put on that place. Obviously, that in the first instance, that's an issue for Flintshire enforcement team to make sure that they're complying with their existing conditions. That's not really a material consideration for this. We're looking at a site that stands on its own for B1 office. So that's non-visiting members of the public. That's about 10 people working in there at computers, a quiet use. That's all we're allowing on that one. We're not allowing any HGVs to be parked within the site. It's just vehicles for people turning up from working. That's all controlled through conditions. So overall, we're looking at what the former use was as a public house. We're looking at an employment use to replace that. 10 people employed. Officers have come to the conclusion that the conditions put forward are sufficient to control the site and ensure there's no detrimental harm to the amenity of residents in the area. I think there was one more question, which was to do with the removal of Part 41, I think it was, yeah. And what that meant. Well, in the permitted development rights, there's allowances for offices such as this, if it were granted, to extend. So this removes that right to extend their unit. So if they want to extend the business building, they would have to come to us for planning permission. They couldn't use their permitted development rights first. I hope that's answered everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Mervyn Parry.
Thank you, Joe. Just did the AOMB, including range AOMB, come back with a report on this application? It's funny for them not to, with it being possibly very close or within the AOMB.
Officers know on this one?
I don't think they have, because the AOMB officers actually left at that point. So I'm scrolling through responses, but as far as I'm aware, they haven't responded. I think what would be interesting to point out that there is no physical change to the site, and that we're actually putting further controls on the car park itself. So there's only going to be cars and smaller vehicles. At present, any vehicle could be parked there. So in terms of impact on the AOMB, this and the additional controls we're putting in place regarding limiting the car parking and limiting the lighting, this is unlikely to have a noticeable impact on the character of the AOMB.
I'm just concerned there, Paul, really, with the lighting, that we're strong enough on the lighting. If this place is going to be open 24/7, that if anywhere that's usually open 24/7 has an element of lighting for people to come in and out. So I'm just hoping that you are strong enough on that one, and it can be challenged if it's been abused at a later time. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll note that. Thank you.
Councillor Christine Marston.
I'd just like to propose that we go with officer recommendation and grant this proposal. In light of all the conditions that are listed, I do feel that the site has been protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second. Sorry. Go.
Okay. So obviously picking up on that point that Mervyn's Councillor Parry has just said about the lighting as well, and it's picked up in the conditions. If we are happy, then we will, if we've got no other speakers, then we will go to the vote on this one. Okay, so for this one, again, the voting will be obliged for if you want to vote to grant in accordance with officer recommendation, then Ed been against to go against officer recommendation, or Amatel abstain. Okay, so I'll go through the list again. Councillor Joan Butterfield.
4.
Councillor Eddie Chard.
4.
Hollyth Gwyneth Ellis.
Obliged.
4.
Didn't hear you, Pete. Sorry.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Brian Jones.
4.
Councillor Tina Jones.
4.
Hollyth Gwyneth Kensler.
Obliged.
Councillor Christine
4.
Marston.
4.
Councillor Bob Murray.
4.
Councillor Murray.
Were you asking for me then, Joe? I got interrupted, I think.
Yeah, Councillor Mervyn Parry.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Pete Pendergast.
4.
Councillor Peter Scott.
4.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
4.
Councillor Joe Welch. 4. Concolly Emily Swin.
Applied.
And
4.
Councillor Mark Young.
4.
Thank you. 16 votes for, no against, no abstain. Therefore, that application has been granted in accordance with officer recommendation. Councillor Parry, did you want to ask a question? There was something on the chat. Did you want to ask that as part of the webcast, or did you want to ask it after the meeting is finished?
No, I'd like to ask it now if possible, just so it's minuted. Just a quick question to officers on applications that come in to us that highway agencies are deemed to comment on the applications. The highway agencies are very slow in responding to this, and what Peter said, what Paul Mead said earlier, that we have an obligation to our applicants to help them get them through. Highway agencies just put a blanket block on the application until they have time to deal with it. Now, highway agencies in North and Mid Wales only have one officer that deal with these, and if there's a problem, then it goes down to Cardiff, and they can take a big delay on anybody's application coming in. And if this is a business application or a private application, it does have a big impact on when and how that development can take place. Can we somehow put maybe some pressure on highways agencies to fit in with a timescale that we expect everybody else to fit into the timescale? It just seems very unfair that they can hold applications back because they haven't got the manpower or the time to deal with it. That's the question, Chair.
Yeah, it seems like a perfectly valid suggestion. Paul, do you want to come out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those sorts of circumstances, it might be appropriate for the chair of planning committee, for example, to write. I know. Well, we'll leave it until after May, Joe, don't we? But yeah, to sort of give it a bit more gravitas to sort of have a planning committee write. Sometimes when it's just an officer writing, there's actually quite a lot of areas of planning, Councillor Parry, where I think when I speak to my colleagues across North Wales and across Wales, the sort of lack of specialist input into planning applications is quite an issue generally. I think that goes for internal departments of councils maybe not having the officers around to provide the input into the planning application process, but also other specialist consultees, as you say, sometimes at NRW and elsewhere. It's quite stretched at times. But I think if we wanted to write as a planning committee to any outside body, I think that would probably hold more credence than just officers writing. But yeah, I take your point, Councillor Parry.
I appreciate that, Paul, and I think if we can be minuted for it to maybe come up in the next planning meetings, because I might not be here and Joe won't be here, but there might be others that will be. But if it's put in the minutes, then it might be done. It's just like today, really. It's very rarely we'd see an application coming in within the AOMB that they haven't made a comment on it, but yet we've actually passed an application without any real remarks from them. And if Denbighshire Highways had no objection to it, but we've got to wait for highway agencies to make a comment on an application, then I just think that they should comply like everybody else. Thank you, Chair. And
yep, no, it's perfectly valid, and if they don't, then yeah, there should be repercussions on that as well. Okay, right, we're going on to, we've got two additional items today, agenda items number 11 and number 12. So agenda item 11 should be on page 181 of your reports. And this is regarding a tree preservation order. So basically the purpose of the report is it is recommended that the provisional TPO is confirmed and therefore remains in force. So just looking at the purpose of the report there, in response to a request by the public, a provisional TPO tree preservation order has been made under delegated powers. Obviously, there's been some objections to that TPO, and therefore that is why it has come to committee. There is a little bit of information on the late reps as well. You can see there that an email has been received by Councillor Bobby Feely. The tree inspector has been made aware of that, we'll be looking into it, and Maida Chloe Davis has also emailed in regarding clarification of the location, and that is then on the late sheets as well. There is you can see where the 4 trees, T1, T2, T3 and T4, there is a location of those on the late rep sheet as well. Okay, so yeah, I'll bring in the local member.
Yeah.
Before you discuss this, when the application to develop the land that has led to this application, when that was submitted, I had to declare an interest. Is that also to do with this application for TPOs on the trees?
Oh, right, yeah. Okay, you declared a personal and prejudicial interest, was that correct? It's in, okay. So just to fill you in, Robin, when this item 73 Eru Court came in for a planning application within the last year to build another house on the land, and Councillor Emrys Wynne did not take part in that debate because he had a personal and prejudicial view on it. So I think what he's asking is, because this is obviously very, very close to that house, and should he step out for this item? as well.
Cadeirydd, ydy ma'n agos dwi'n byw yn agos, o'n i
I
dyna.
live close by, but that wasn't the reason. The reason I ask is because I declared prejudicial and interest, and because I knew the family well and so on, and that I lived nearby with developing the land. It's just because this is attached to this that application. That's why I'm asking. I would like to take part in the discussion, but only if that is allowed.
Okay, do you want to comment on that, Robin?
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Fel dwi'n dallt i...
Yes, from what I believe, there is no ownership or nobody has been recognised as the owner of this land. So I'm not aware that you won't have the same nature of interest in this application, and unless those people who you had to declare an interest for, unless they've taken a firm stand on this, and maybe they could analyse your contribution as promoting their interests. But if that isn't true, if that isn't factually true, then I don't think there's a need for you to declare an interest on this item, because it's not on land where the owner has been recognised. So I think the conditions are different, but that's the only basis. If those individuals who were promoting your interest in the previous matter, if they've made a clear point on this, then you should carry on like that. Thank you. I'll have to come back then and say that the family who are developing the land nearby have put a declaration on this TPO. Their names are down, so in those circumstances, the danger for you in taking part here is that people could analyse your views as promoting the interests of those individuals. So that is a matter for you, but it appears to me that there is quite a clear case for you to continue to declare an interest to avoid any trouble to you as an individual. Thank you. So in face of what you've just said, and against my own wishes, but I must be honest, but I have no choice but to withdraw from the discussion.
Okay, so that's a personal and prejudicial. Yeah, so we'll...
Sorry, Chair, can I just intervene on that point? Would you allow public speaking on this matter if anybody had registered to do so?
I will bring... no, we wouldn't have, I don't think.
No, okay, fine, because there is an exception in the code which allows a local member, even with a prejudicial interest, to take to take advantage of public speaking in that sense. But if it's not an item that you would have allowed public speaking on, then unfortunately I can't see any exception available to the local member. Diolch.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah, so we'll put you in the waiting room. Okay, and we'll hopefully remember to bring you back for item 12. Okay, diolch yn fawr. Right. Obviously, you can see that little bit of information on the blue sheets there. Officers have suggested having the TPO remain in force. Do officers want to come in on the reasons for that, or happy to let anyone debate it? Okay, Councillor Mervyn Parry, you've got your hand up. Did you want to come in on this?
Sorry, Chair, it must have been from before or mistake.
Okay. Does anyone want to come in on this item? I know obviously some of the objections are about concerns about the trees and that they're needing pollarding. I think that's what Councillor Bobby Feely has mentioned. But I think speaking to officers, they've said, you know, with the TPO on there, obviously work could still be done on them. Yeah, so what she said is an urgent need of pollarding, as in their present state, they could be a danger to the public and should be done more urgently than the TPO. The council's tree inspector has been made aware of this statement and will be looking into this matter in due course. Obviously, having a TPO on them does not stop them being attended to. So if work does need to be done on them, having a TPO on them doesn't obviously stop that work being done, which I think is what officers were making clear to me yesterday. So has anyone got any comments on this? yeah, we do need to have, this is an item, even though it's just an additional item, it is one that we do need to take a vote on. So we do need something being proposed. Councillor Peter Scott.
Sorry, Chair, I was just going to ask that same question. Are we voting on it? Yeah. If we need a vote, I'll propose whatever you want us to vote on. You tell me what you want me to propose and I will.
Okay, well, yeah, well, that's fine to propose something, yeah. So we just need to know which way you want to go. So you can either obviously propose if you want to confirm the TPO, then obviously you could propose that. You wouldn't need a reason for that because that would be going with officers. If you wanted to go against the TPO, feeling that it wasn't necessary, then obviously we think we'd need a reason for that. So
no, I'll propose we could confirm the TPO then.
And I will second.
Thank
Joe.
you, Chad. Okay, so if we don't have any other speakers on this item, we will go to the vote. So this will be, if you want to confirm the TPO, that will be you're voting for to go in accordance with officer recommendation. If you want to go against the TPO, then you'd vote against or abstain. Okay, so Councillor Joan Butterfield.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Chad.
For.
Cynghorydd Gwyneth Ellis.
Plaid.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Evans.
For.
Brian Jones.
For.
Councillor Tina Jones.
For.
Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
Plaid.
Councillor Christine Marston.
For.
Councillor Bob Murray.
For.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
For.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
For.
Councillor Peter Scott.
For.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
For.
Joe Welch. For. King Holiday, Miss Wynn is obviously not present. And Councillor Mark Young.
For.
So that's 15 votes for, no against, no abstain. Therefore, that TPO tree preservation order has been confirmed. So if we could bring Councillor Miss Wynn back into the chamber, or the Zoom chamber. And the final item. Unfortunately, I didn't have time last night. I was going to count how many agenda items there'd been in the last 5 years. I fell asleep. 50 meetings. There's probably about 7 or 8 every meeting. So this is probably our 400th decision of the term. So there you go. Right. So this is on page 185. There is a little bit of information on the blue sheets. So page 185, agenda item number 12. This is the LLANRMON offshore wind farm nationally significant infrastructure project. The purpose of this report, basically, it's to give officers delegated powers to submit some notes on our behalf, because planning committee doesn't convene again until the middle of June, and we may have had to do this already. So if you look at 1.7 on page 185, it says, therefore, this report seeks members' approvals to make representations on the DCO application and submit a local impact report under delegated powers in consultation with affected ward councillors, the lead member for planning and the chair of planning committee. So obviously that's what officers are suggesting. Do officers want to come in on any of this? No. Okay. So does anyone have any comments on this? If you note, okay, they should be RWE intend to submit the DCO today, and then I think there's a few weeks where it can then get sorted out, and then we have only 14 days to comment on it, which is why obviously it just won't come back before planning committee meets again. Councillor Brian Jones.
Yeah. At point 3 on the paper about the proposal, I think it'd be prudent if officers certainly make a note, if nothing else, that we make some sort of comment, we ask for some sort of feedback on 3.5, which refers to the RHYL Golf Club, the landfall location. We'll probably remember what happened last time and the kerfuffle that it caused. So we may as well make a point on that one, that we need the detail. Will it be as the previous proposal, or because this proposal's been revamped, will it be different? Will there be a different thinking on it? So the point at 3.5 and then at 3.7, where there's a reference then to the landfall location at RHYL Golf Course leading to the substation at the St. Asaph Business Park. What's the detail on that? We need to watch that. And again, hopefully what happened last time, there won't be a repeat and we end up in a bum fight. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynghorydd Mary Clwyd Davies.
Diolch am adrodd mi ddod I mewn.
Thank you for allowing me to come in, Chair. Could I thank you very much for this report? It's very comprehensive. Could I thank the officers and the company that you have used to assist here? I can't remember their name, can't see their name, it's here somewhere. LUC. Could I thank them very much? Great work has gone into this. I have sent a word in and I've had a chat with an officer, with Officer Paul Mead. I'm quite happy for them to read the letter outside the meeting and to pick up on what I've said. There is a slip up with the name of the road and so on. There's an error in the spelling with Welsh name in one place. And the only thing that I wanted to try and find out was, by reading the plan, they went over the wall onto land that belongs to Bodilwyddan Castle. And I couldn't see any reference to that part of the land in the report, but I may have missed it, I don't know. But I do thank you for the report, it's very good. And it goes into very complicated issues, and thank you for that.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. We do need a vote on this one, don't we? Because obviously this is asking for delegated powers, we do need a proposal and a seconder for this one.
I'll propose, Chair, again.
Thank you, Councillor Peter Scott, proposing that we allow officers to submit a local impact report under delegated powers in consultation.
Yep.
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Markey, and we were seconded by Councillor Christine Marston. Just before you. So there we go. So we will go to the vote on this one. Again, slide 4, if you're in agreement with the, allowing the delegated powers, and Edbin against that, Amatel abstain. Okay, so Councillor Joan Butterfield.
4.
Councillor Ellie Chard.
4.
And Horace Gwyneth Ellis.
O blaid.
4.
Councillor Peter Evans.
4.
Councillor Brian Jones.
4.
Councillor Tina Jones.
4.
Councillor Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
O blaid.
4.
Councillor Christine Marston.
4.
Councillor Bob Murray.
4.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
4.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
4.
Councillor Peter Scott.
4.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
4.
Councillor Joe Welch. 4. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn. You're on mute.
Dwi 'di agor y mic, sorry, o blaid.
4.
Councillor Mark Young.
4.
That's 16 votes for, no against, no abstain. Therefore, that has gone through, and that approval, the local impact report can go under delegated powers. And I think that's it.
Excellent.
There we go. Right. For those of you out campaigning, enjoy the rest of the day in the sunshine.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to diolch yn fawr.
Good
luck.
Thank you, everybody.
Any help, welcome, Chair. Thank you. Jock and vote.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Sorry, most of the people are going out. Just wanted to say, from an officer perspective, thank the chair, planning committee, for all his professionalism and efforts over the last 5 years, and obviously also to Councillor Christine Marston as vice chair. We've had an excellent relationship, I think, over this period of time. I'd like to obviously thank Alan Mullen James as well previously. So the chair and vice chair, I think we've we've worked really well, and I just wanted to highlight the sort of professionalism and dignity and calm the chairman has shown over this period of time. It's been really helpful and made the planning committee well, I was going to say bearable, but enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you very much appreciated. And I think, yeah, I'd just like to thank all the officers, Paul Mead and Paul Griffin, and prior to that, Ian Weaver. We can get his name in planning committee one last time, and there we go. And all the other staff as well, Steph, Rodri, Kath, and the translators who've been there for all of us for those last 5 years, and everyone else as well. So thank you very much. Take care.
Can I just add Judith Williams's name?
Yes, yeah. No, she's great help. That's a very good point, Gwyneth. Diolch yn fawr, yeah. And to all the legal officers who've helped us out over the last few years as well. So yeah, diolch Gwyneth for that. Very important. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, can I just ask? Can I ask Paul, whoever dealt with the item with the TPOs, could I have a quick chat with you, please?
Yeah. What we'll do is we'll just end the webcast now.
Yeah.
And then we can, if you want to stay on, Emrys, that's fine. Yeah. So we'll end the webcast.